acting in any profession today, and we will do some activities together, and hopefully you guys will get a little something out of it and get up and move your bodies a little bit, but I promise not to make you do anything awkward on camera. But I would love to share a little bit about myself. I am a Livermore resident and a former alumni, or I guess alumni of Las Positas College. I came here when I was a high school student doing concurrent enrollment, and then went and trained in New York at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And then from there, came back to San Francisco, got my bachelor's degree in acting, my master's degree in drama. I've trained with Shakespeare's Globe and UC Davis. I've worked all over the area as a teacher and as an artist. And I taught for many years in Tracy at Tracy High School in their Performing Arts Magnet, and then was blessed to be given the job here where it sort of all started for me. It was a beautiful sort of cycle and circle around to a place that I am really passionate about. So I'm so grateful to be with you this morning. And I would love to just have you introduce yourself to me. You're welcome to share a little bit about yourself if you would like. And if 9:07 is a little too early for a bio, that's all right. You can just share your name as well. And I'll just go ahead and pass it off to Mr. Marchand and let you go ahead and introduce first.
Well, great. Thank you very much. John Marchand, and I've spent my career as a chemist, did most recently a stint in politics. And what we've seen lately in the political world is that really politics is just low theater. I did theater, I did community theater. In fact, that's where I met my wife. In front of the Bankhead Theater, there's a brick that says non est mercatum similis theatralis. And that is from a first play that I did in the acting company where I met my wife. And it translates to there's no business like show business. So looking forward to working with the class.
Thank you so much. Who's next?
We lost
we lost one already. He was like, intros, I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna be anonymous. Well.
Okay, Cherie. Oh, so hi, I'm Cherie Souza, and I am the operations specialist here at the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. Dawn?
Good morning. I'm Dawn Argula, and I am the CEO of the Livermore Valley Chamber of Commerce. And thank you for doing this program today.
I am happy to. Listen, I'll talk about acting anytime I have the opportunity. It's not a hard sell. Well, good morning. So thank you for sharing your names with me. And I'm really excited to have all of you here. I think it's going to be a great session. We are going to talk about acting techniques that you can use in any profession, whether it's chemistry or politics or being the CEO of a really important chamber organization. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to share my screen with you as we get started and go ahead and get this going. So again, my name is Titian Lish, and I am with Las Positas College. We're going to cover 3 things today in our class. We're going to look at memorizing content for delivery, how we ready ourselves to speak, and how we roll with the punches when things may not go as we anticipate in any sort of public speaking engagement. And I think one of the things that can be really important to remember is that public speaking can happen anywhere, right? We can be speaking for our schools, we can be speaking for our political organizations in public places. You could just be giving a speech at a wedding. And I know I have seen many a wedding speech go awry. And so I think it is really great to take some time to prepare for your presentation using these kind of 3 techniques. And some of it might seem really obvious that we think about, of course, I need to kind of memorize the content that I'm going to do for the day, but we may not know how to prepare for that or how to effectively prepare for that for ourselves. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today. So the first thing that we want to think about is how we memorize our content for delivery. And there's 10 techniques that I'm going to share with you about that. One of the most common things I hear when I talk to people about acting or performing in any capacity is, oh my gosh, How do you memorize all those lines? And I try and share with them that as humans, we actually have the capacity to hold an enormous amount of information in our brains, sometimes useful information, sometimes not so useful information. We just know that we can dig into the recesses and bring that out and bring it to the table. And I like to use the example of the song Happy Birthday. Most people are familiar with the song Happy Birthday. Most of you can sing it successfully. Well is objective. And I say that the reason we can do that is for three reasons. We are exposed to it repeatedly. We align it with something other than the words itself, and in this case, it's music. And we attach a personal experience or an emotional investment to it. And those three things in combination make memorization actually much easier to achieve. But it can be really hard to get emotionally invested to some of the content that we have to deliver in our lives. Some of it's really exciting and we love it, right? And some of it is maybe not, and we have to still present it with a little bit of authority in the space. And so I would like to begin by talking about some techniques that we can use for memorizing content for delivery. So the first kind of few topics that I want to talk about with you is some of the things that we do as actors when we're given a text. Now, when we're given texts now as performers, we are given the full text. The full script is really what is happening for us, right? That has not always been the case. We know that Shakespeare's actors were only given cue scripts, meaning they had their line and one or two words of the speaker before them, and that was it. And you just had to really actively listen and hope you were paying attention to the story while you were learning your lines. But we get all of it. And so what we know we have to do is we have to be prepared and we have to know our material. And that might seem obvious. And yet, I'm sure all of us have seen presentations where it didn't seem like people were 100% confident and comfortable in the information that they were presenting. In acting classes, we look at a couple of things. We look at the given circumstances of a scene, and you'll have to forgive me if I'm always referring to you all as actors. That's what you're going to be for the day. We're going to look at the given circumstances of your scene or your presentation, and we're going to think about the final moment. So the given circumstances in anything that we're performing on stage is the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. We look at those five: the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. Now in acting, the who is the actors on stage, the relationship we have with other performers. In presentations, that might be between you and the people you're speaking with. What is the content? A general elevator pitch of the content. So if I saw you in the elevator on the way to the speech and I said, oh my gosh, Dawn, what are you giving a presentation on today? We want Dawn to be able to say to me, oh, I'm doing this in 2 or 3 sentences. So that's the kind of what of it. We want to think about when we're giving it and where we're giving it. I often tell my students what I do in my kitchen and what I do in my bathroom are not the same thing. And it's important when I am preparing to perform something, I think about the space. Now, in acting, we think about the space that the character is in, their bedroom, a wedding, what have you. But here, you might just want to spend some time visualizing the environment that you're going to present in, whether that's online or whether that's in a boardroom or at a wedding. Take a moment when you're working on your presentation at home to close your eyes, use your inner imagination, and visualize the where and the when of the space. I know that I am sort of a morning person, right? So I kind of wake up, I have my coffee, I'm ready to go. Who I am as a human at 9 a.m. is like radically different than who I am as a human at 9 p.m. So it's important for me to know that coming into the experience. So I think about who my relationship is with the people that I'm going to be presenting with. I think about the elevator pitch, what I'm going to be presenting. I visualize my environment, the where and the when, so that I'm not thrown when I get there. I think about what my actual space is going to be like. And then I ask myself, why am I doing this, right? This is your sort of why moment, your objective, right? The reason for doing or being for yourself in that moment. And then I ask my students and my performers to think about the final moment. When I visualize the last thing I say, the last thing I'm going to do for the day, what do I want that to feel like and look like for them? Do I want to be standing? Do I want to be sitting? Do I want to be ending on a question or ending on a statement? Do I want them to be engaging, or do I want them to be active listening? So what do I want that final moment to look like and feel like visually? Knowing your 5 given circumstances and your final moment of any experience can really help you drive through the experience, right? If you get a little bit lost in the delivery, you can come back to those given circumstances and kind of get yourself back on track. If you get nervous and you're scared, and when you start to speak, you start to get a little bit flustered, you can think about the relationships you have with the people. Think about the space you're in a little bit, just sort of get out of your head for half a second, and that can be really helpful in resettling you in the moment. So when I'm working with a text, I ask myself the given circumstances, and I ask myself the final moments before I even dive into how I'm going to deliver it. And these things are really important to me. Then the first acting technique I do is I whisper the text. I whisper the speech out to myself like a weirdo in my space privately. And if I have the whole speech written out, I can make little notes on it. But sometimes I just quietly talk to myself. We know that as humans, we talk to ourselves. Most people do. Uta Hagen, who's an acting practitioner that I follow, often says that there are 5 ways people talk to themselves. I think this is a really powerful tool. When we whisper our text, when we whisper our content that we're going to be delivering, our brain does really fascinating things with the information. It sort of reminds us of when we're telling secrets to like our best friends in middle school. So there's this sort of juicy feeling to whispering the text. It kind of feels exciting. Our brain and our voice delivers it in a slightly more electric way. And the thing that's most fascinating to me when whispering the text is that your brain will instinctually emphasize really important words for clarity and understanding and delivery. Because if you were whispering to your best friend in math class and you didn't want your teacher to hear the things that you're gossiping about, your brain would push these really key words that you want your partner to hear so they can understand the whole story. When I whisper the text and I pay attention to what I'm naturally pressing, I know that those are the key words, the key ideas that I really want to share with my listener. This is really, really important. I love this technique, and it can really help you drive in and get settled in the text that you're delivering. So if you have it printed out in front of you, have a pencil. We use pencils in acting. Have a pencil, whisper the text. And when you notice you press a word and you make it a little bit more emphatic, you give it a little bit more oomph, zhuzh, if you will, you're going to underline that word. Think of it like the underline boosting the word up in your visuals. So just underline the word. Don't underline entire sentences. When we do that, we get to like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where the guy is just speaking loudly and monotonously at his students the entire speech. We don't want that. We want keywords to float to the top. And so we're going to underline just the things that stress when we're whispering. We call this using your actor's third eye, or the duality of acting, the ability to be focused in the moment and aware of the moment at the same time is what we call the actor's duality. After you've whispered your text and you've maybe stressed and underlined these really key words that you want to make sure that the juiciness is exhibited to your audience or your listener, I'm going to ask you then to read the text out loud at your natural projected volume. And I want you to see if you can still stress those words. Can you still zhuzh a little bit while you're reading, while you're presenting to yourself, to your cat, to your wall, whatever? Can you still press those words up? If as you're reading your lines out loud, you find something that's really exciting and you're like, ooh, that's so good when I say that word, I really want that to be heard by my audience, give it 2 underlines, right? Your brain will see that and like trigger that it's extra important. If as you're reading something out loud, you realize, oh, I didn't really stress any of those words as much as I thought I did, you can erase them. And then you're working to really provide clarity to the parts of the speech or the text that you're giving that's really important for your audience to hear. So we're going to think about what we're doing, right? Our given circumstances and our final moment. We're going to whisper our text and engage our actor duality in our language. And then we're going to try and get it into our voice and body in a really casual way, thinking about the content that we've talked about. The next thing that we're going to do is sometimes called content mapping. Script scoring is the term that we use in acting. We call it script scoring. After you've read your text out loud and you've underlined the things that your actor duality says is important, I want you to go back to that speech or that text that you're going through or that presentation that you're emphasizing or that you're sharing with people. And we know you've got emphasis, that's the underlines. And I want you to indicate places where you're going to pause, places where you're going to breathe. And I want you to mark that on your page. Maybe you put it at the end of a slide and you just give a pause. Maybe it's at the end of a sentence and you for sure want to just rest and let the audience think for a moment. Building pauses into your work is really helpful. It can help slow you down. It can settle your adrenaline and your heart rate if you're getting a little excited or a little nervous. It can give the audience time to catch up or ask questions. The way I mark pauses in script scoring is I just use a slash, right? Like just a backslash, or like however you want to slashing straight up and down, pick a slash. But you just want to stick it on the page somewhere. Just a line at the end of a sentence, at the end of a word, at the end of a section of text or a slide, a graphic, what have you. Just put a slash there. So you know to pause, take a nice big inhale and exhale it out. I recommend 3 seconds. Longer than 3 feels awkward. Shorter than 3 is maybe not useful. So a nice inhale and a nice exhale. So we're going to mark our pauses. We're going to mark our emphasis. And then the parts of our speech that are maybe unusual to how our natural speaking pattern is, we want to mark those as well. And I say this because this is going to be a little bit unique to everyone. When I get excited, I can be a really fast speaker, you may have noticed. So sometimes when I'm delivering speeches and I'm looking at texts that I have to give, I have to indicate sections that I want to slow down at. So maybe I just circle that speech or that section of the text. You might be a naturally slow speaker, so your circle might be to encourage you to speed up. You might have a section of speech that you just really want to land, you want to take some time with, or you want to look at a specific person or do a specific thing or click the slideshow to move on. It's basically just a little bubble around the text that says this part of the speech is really important and I need to land here just a little bit more in some way. But what that's going to mean for you is going to be unique to you as the speaker. So we've used our actor duality to push up some stress and some emphasis. We've understood that we need to put some pauses and some moments to kind of recover ourselves in our presentations. And then we're going to look at the sections of the speech that we really need to hone in on as an individual, whether that's for speed or for content or for action. We're just going to circle that. And then I think you should go back and write your staging and your beats in there. Now, If I'm giving a wedding speech, that might be where I want to raise a glass and toast. So I might write on my paper, raise glass, toast, right? Because if you don't write it down, you get kind of nervous in the moment and you could forget. If I'm standing in front of the city council and I'm giving a presentation, that might be the moment that I want to gesture to a slideshow, or that I want to gesture to something that I've brought in that's an actual item that we're demonstrating. If, John is giving a presentation about the beautiful new fountain that they're building downtown, and he wants to click the slide to show the ball in action, right? He might write a little note there. I know how he loves the ball fountain. So he might click the little slide and put a little note there, click to move the ball. So those things, writing them in your process of preparation is going to be really, really important. So you're going to give yourself some stage direction of things you're going to physically do. The ball, y'all, the ball. He brought it up to the job. Write that down on your page. So you're going to put some staging notes in there. I think this is really important. And I think it's so important, truly, if you are giving some sort of presentation where you have to refer to graphics, or you're giving like a wedding speech, right? Don't forget to like gesture to the bride and groom, gesture to the parents, raise your glass, write it down, and you'll feel more confident when you do it. The last acting note that I'm going to give you as it relates to the text itself is beats. Stanislavski, we think, came up with beats. Konstantin Stanislavski is considered the father of modern realism, and he was a Russian teacher and actor director, and he was telling his students, take a beat, take a beat. And we don't know exactly what he meant by that. He could have just been saying, take a pause. He could have been saying, take a moment. But it was Russian and we were American actors, and I'm not sure if we were listening incredibly coherently. And so what we brought back to the United States with it was a little bit of an interpretation of the idea of a beat. But generally a beat is a change in action, sometimes a change in mood in the space. The way I mark that in my scripts is I draw a line all the way across the page. It looks like a giant stop sign. When I get to that, I'm going to take an extended pause. It's an opportunity to look at the people that I'm talking to. I might put a bit of staging in that moment. I might kind of allow my mood to settle in a different way so I can come into the next delivery with a little bit of a different style to it. But I'm going to mark that beat. And again, it's going to give me an opportunity to reset my breath pattern, to reset my nerves, to take a nice inhale and kind of prepare myself for the next section. So if you're giving a presentation and you first have to talk about budget, and then the next thing you have to talk about is design, before you move into design, take a beat, put a line there, take some inhales. You might want to ask questions, but you might not. You might want to just allow the pause to happen and see what naturally comes up, and then sort of give people the opportunity to transition. I don't know how many of you raised kids, but they often tell you in raising children that you want to give them warning for transitions, right? Okay, guys, we're going to leave in 5 minutes. Hey, we need 2 minutes to put your shoes on. Okay, we're going to grab our backpacks and get in the car. Okay, time to go, right? So you're kind of giving them the heads up on how the next activity is happening. Beats and acting sort of work in the same way for the audience. It sort of says, I'm taking a pause here because this activity is coming to an end. This moment, this mood is coming to an end. And I'm letting you guys know that by having this pause so that you can prepare yourselves for something new. So when we get our text, whatever our text is, we're going to think about our given circumstances so we can place ourselves in the moment. We're going to ask ourselves what our final moment is. That helps us feel in control of the presentation we might be about to give. And we're going to whisper our text and read it out loud and listen for emphasis. And then we're going to do some script scoring. We're going to build some pauses in there. We're going to circle some sections that are really relevant and we really want to hone in on. We're going to not forget to mark our staging, raise your glass, cheers. And then we're going to give a beat at the end of it, so people can really process the content before we move on. So after we've done that, we want to go ahead and actually start trying to memorize. The great thing is that once you've gone through all of the things on the left, you'll have read through that presentation, that slideshow, that content at least 6 times. But each time you've read through it, your brain is focusing on something else. It's focusing on whispering, it's focusing on reading it out loud, it's focusing for pauses, it's focusing for content, it's looking at staging, and it's looking at beats. It's not paying attention to the words, but your brain is absorbing it, right? It's just that you're sort of tricking it and saying, oh, no, we're not working on memorization right now. We're working on these other things instead. And your brain just naturally starts to remember. It's kind of amazing like that. After you've done those 6 things, then you need to actually spend some time with memorizing. And this is where I think people get nervous because they don't really know what to do. And they might think to themselves, well, I'm just going to read it over and over and over again. But that may or may not actually help you memorize. And I know personally, that worked great for me when I was 20. I could just memorize very quickly and very effortlessly long passages of text very cleanly. Now, as I age, that is not quite so true. It takes me a little bit more effort to get something to embed. And that's just because I have a lifetime of wisdom packed in there, and I just have to make room from all of my genius. So you're probably in the same boat. You have too much genius in your brain, and you need to make some room for this thing that you're trying to memorize. And so you're going to have to continue to trick your brain. One of the things I like to do is read through my text again, read through my speech, go through your presentation, whatever the thing is that you're practicing for, and you're going to point on pronouns. Don't overdo this, y'all. You don't have to do every single pronoun that exists. That just makes you look like you're directing traffic. I think if you just focus on I and you or we, and you use kind of the Disney point for that. I don't know if you know that point, but it's kind of an open palmed point where you say like I and you. If you read through your speech, every time you say I, gesture to yourself. Every time you say you, gesture to your audience. You get some movement in your arms. This can be really helpful in making you feel comfortable and warm and engaging during your presentation. But it also can tell you a fascinating thing. It can tell you who the content is about in any given section. If you're saying I, and you're delivering a wedding speech, you might want to revise that section, right? You might want to work to get to you or they a little bit more often. It's really helpful. If you're saying you a lot and you're talking in front of a large group of people, I might encourage you to use both arms so that you're not only pointing at one person. This is a helpful way for your audience to feel like they are a part of the presentation that you are giving because you're inviting them in, and you're not doing it with this point because no one likes that, but this one, for whatever reason, feels a little bit more open and welcoming. So we're going to use this as a gesture. You can say you and do the sort of general global you like this. That's okay. You can say we and do this, but I think practicing pointing on pronouns helps relax your body and engages with your audience. And it gives us a little bit of a harkening back to the given circumstances idea, right? When we had to think about who we were who our relationship was with the people that we were speaking with. If these people are people that I am peers with, or I have a relationship with, or right, whatever the given circumstance might be, this sort of a thing is really inviting to them and says, hey, we're all in this together. So you're going to point on pronouns. Then I'm going to recommend that you record yourself giving your presentation. You have a phone that most likely does it. You can record it as a voice memo, talk to yourself, again, talk to your cat, do the whole thing that you've been doing, but record it this time and listen to it. And I recommend listening to it when you're doing other things, washing the dishes, brushing your teeth, taking a shower. You don't have to be trying to speak at the same time. You don't even have to be actively listening, honestly. It can just be playing in the background while you're taking a walk, what have you, and your brain will start to memorize it. And we know this because this is true on the radio when we listen to music over and over again, and you're like, how do I know that song? I know the lyrics to that song, but I don't know who sings it, and I don't know what the song is called, but I somehow know this already, and it's because of repetition when you weren't really paying attention. Using a tape recorder is how we get children to memorize lines. Kids in movies and television shows who don't read yet and are able to give these really beautiful passages of text and speaking. It's because we record their lines and we play them while they're doing other things, sometimes even while they sleep, which really sounds weird now that I say it. So you're going to use a tape recorder and just kind of listen to it casually while you're moving about your life. After you've done that for a little bit, you're going to use flashcards and you're only going to put the cues on them. Don't put your lines on there. Put something that leads into the next one. So for instance, you might have a 10-minute speech. You might come up with 10 flashcards. Each flashcard is maybe the first sentence of a section of a minute of that text. You're going to write the first sentence or just a word that sort of explains what you want to be talking about, right? Given circumstances. And then you're going to pull those flashcards up and it's going to say, given circumstances. And you're going to go, oh, okay. So in this part of my speech, I'm going to talk about given circumstances. And then you're just practicing the content, but you've listened to it. You've pointed on pronouns. You've done all the script scoring. So the information is going to be there for you. You're just not staring at the text the whole time. Rewriting your speech longhand, like old school, writing it on a piece of binder paper, cursive or not, is really helpful in just getting involved in your body and the text. We know that that's an effective way to remember information. It's why teachers still encourage it in classes over typing. The muscle memory tends to connect it. And then last but not least, go back to happy birthday and sing the speech. You can use the happy birthday tune and sing the things you want to talk about. So be prepared, know the material, given circumstances, and final moment, whisper the text, read the lines out loud, content map, and script score. So you can just do it, right? And you're starting to align the content with a different part of your brain that can be really, really helpful in remembering that. So I want to pause here briefly and ask you to share with me any questions, or sometimes I say aha moments that you would like to share out with the group that you think is particularly useful for you, or something that you would like some additional clarity on. No, we're good. I'm so glad.
I'll just pop in something here. So one of the things that's sort of been helpful is the understanding that the audience doesn't know what is supposed to happen.
Yes.
So if you do flub up something, don't telegraph it by going, oh, dang, blew it. They don't know.
They don't know.
So you know what? You just keep, I meant to do that.
Yes.
And then you just keep pushing through.
Yeah, this is the great thing about preparation. They don't know what you prepared. They don't have a copy of the speech in front of them. The more prepared you are, the more likely you are to stay on point, right? And so when those flubs happen, you can just bounce to the next thing. Sometimes in acting, we say, move to the next beat, right? If you are like, oh, I've lost my lines here, I don't know what's happening, then we go, okay, go to the next emotional moment, jump. The audience doesn't know. So we talk about that. If you know the way the storyline is supposed to go, yeah, those mess ups, they don't really trip you up as much. So this work is all really to help you in the preparation process so that you can feel so confident when mistakes happen. And y'all, the third thing we're going to talk about is how mistakes do in fact happen and like how we want to continue to move forward with that. So after we've practiced all of these different ways to engage with our technique or with our text, we want to then think about our technique as it relates to actually delivering it. And some of us we know are really confident public speakers or teachers or engagers, and some of us just not so much. Some of us just don't love it, or we get really nervous. And that's something we often hear as acting teachers. Oh my gosh, I could never get on stage. I'm terrified to speak in public. I'm terrified to do this thing. Well, the reality is we're not actually speaking in public. We're performing characters outside of ourselves in public, right? So we're pretending publicly. And I think you can do the same thing. But one of the reasons we're able to get through that process of being really nervous in front of people, and actors are nervous, the best actors, Patti LuPone is nervous before she goes on stage, right? It's just the human condition to feel scared about this thing. What we have to do is convince ourselves that our bodies and our voice can be ready to take on this moment, and we have to get it ready to do that. So the first thing that we're going to do as performers is some physical warm-ups. So I'm going to walk through these with you right now. And if you would like to step and do them with me, you're more than welcome to. If you'd like to do it, but you feel uncomfortable with having yourself on camera while doing it, I'm okay. If you want to go ahead and turn your camera off, I'm not going to be offended by it. I'm going to go ahead and step back in my space so you can see it as I'm walking you through it. But I'm going to encourage you to do these physical warm-ups. If you don't do them before you give a speech, that's okay. But these help you kind of settle your body nerves down. They're also just feel good for your body, and they're nice to do every day. I do these every single day, like when I wake up, right before a class, sometimes after a class, before rehearsal, and it just helps my body get in the space. The other thing that's really helpful is these are not physical activities that we do before we do the dishes or before we go on a walk or before we go out to dinner with friends. So by kind of keeping them as preserved before I present or perform in some way, it tells my body and my brain, you are about to do this other thing now, you are prepping, right? So it's that transition experience that we talked about. It's starting my body and my voice to begin the transition to be able to do the acting thing. And you can do this all of the time, just when you get to work. This is the transition of I am now at work. And I think it can be really, really valuable for people. So these are the physical warm-ups we're going to do. We're going to do a head-neck connection. We're going to do shoulders and arms. We're going to do roll downs and what I in the Globe Theatre in London call the elements. We're going to do a little bit of facial massage because it's nice and we all have tension and grind our jaws when we sleep, when we're stressed. We're going to do raisin face, lion face, and then a little bit of a jaw shake. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through this process that we do as performers. And you have probably seen these in SNL skits and television shows where they make fun of actors, and it's because we really do them every day because they're super useful, and I'm going to encourage you to do it too. So this is your moment to go ahead and get up if you would like. It's nice to get out of your chair and move your body just a little bit, and if you want to turn your camera off while doing so, that's absolutely okay, and if not, we'll just shake our heads together. It'll be great. So I'm going to go ahead and step back so you can see me, and hopefully you can still hear me okay from all the way over here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is what we call the head-neck connection. So we're just going to stand here with our feet about 6 to 8 inches apart, arms at our side, gaze going forward. And just for a second, just kind of rock yourself forward and back on your feet. I like to kind of wiggle my toes for a second. And I just kind of find myself centered on my feet. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and roll our head and neck from side to side, not backwards, just from shoulder to shoulder going forward. I don't worry about my hair. It's just part of the experience. So just feeling yourself waking up this part of your body, not putting any sort of stress or emphasis on it. Try to not, be frustrated if your neck feels tight. Just notice how your body feels, observe it, but try not to apply judgment to it. After we've woken up our head and neck, we're going to go ahead and set our head back at center, and then we're just going to gently roll our shoulders backwards. We do a lot of time hunched forward, a lot of typing, a lot of computer work, a lot of texting, driving. All of these things put us in a forward shoulder roll, and we want to sort of wake our shoulders up. So we're just going to start moving from here. And then I kind of make those shoulder rolls just a little bit bigger. I start small and then I go big. And then if it feels good for you, you can kind of bend your elbow and do this. If you don't have a lot of room, I'm going to alternate just because I have a tight space. Or you can go really wide and slow and really feel the stretch in your triceps, in your biceps, and in your shoulders. And again, we're just trying to wake our body up and say, hey, I'm about to do this thing, and this is part of my transitional process. From here, we're going to do a roll down. So keeping my feet at about that 6 to 8 inches apart, I'm going to soften my knees. So I'm not going to bend because that's like work. I'm just going to soften them and let them be a little noodly knees. And I'm going to go ahead and tuck my chin to my chest. And then I'm going to let my belly relax and soften, and I'm going to roll down, keeping my chin tucked the entire time. This should take about 20 seconds to do. And about halfway down, you'll feel your lower back try and grab. You might Feel the instinct to look up and around. Try and breathe into it and relax and let your chin tuck again. And once you get down here, you might bob a little bit. You might nod your head yes and shake your head no. You might decide to wiggle your hips a little and let your lower back relax. If it feels good, you can grab your elbows and add a little bit more of a pull to your upper back. And after that feels good, you're going to roll up slowly, one vertebrae at a time, stacking your spine until your shoulders are in place. Then you'll bring your gaze up and then you can fix your hair. I know everyone does it. Everyone's like, oh my gosh. Then the next thing I do is I do what's called the elements. This is something that was taught to me at Shakespeare's Globe when I worked with them. And it's just a series of 4 kind of yoga poses that feel really nice on the body. So I'm going to step really wide here. I'm going to put my arms out to the side, and I'm just going to go into a little bit of a lateral wide squat. You don't have to hang out here for too long if you don't love it. I love it. My students get mad at me because I will hang out here for really long periods of time. But you're going to hang out here. We call this earth. Then I'm going to point my toes forward. I'm going to round over again. Soften my knees, drop my chin to my chest, let that lower back relax one more time. You might go from side to side. You might bend or straighten your knees to stretch your hamstrings. And if you can't touch the ground, that's okay. Some days I can't either. And then you're going to inch those feet together. You're going to roll up slowly one more time. Set those shoulders, fix that hair. Arms are going to come up. And you're going to basically create like a point straight up and give yourself like a candle with a flame at the top of it. Keep that gaze forward. Try not to let your elbows press against your ears. Create a little bit of space. So you're just growing tall from the arms, and we're creating some space here between ribs and hips. And then from here, take a nice inhale. And your arms can come straight down. And then you'll notice we're standing in that same actor's neutral position that we started in, but we've sort of done some stretching and your body should feel a little bit more woken up. From here, I'm going to do a little bit of facial massage. And the way I like to do that is I tap my face first to sort of tell it that I'm about to manhandle it and push it around a little bit. I tap my forehead and my cheeks, my lips. Hopefully you have clean fingers. And then from here, I'm going to take the heels of my palm right here, and I'm going to push it against my jaw, back by my ears. I'm going to massage that and drag it towards the front of my face. Kind of relax that area, kind of where you clench your jaw. If you clench or grind your teeth at night, or you have TMJ, that area back by your ears where your upper and lower jaw connects can be really tense. So we're going to massage that. And then from here, we're going to do raisin face, lion face. So just do a couple of these. I'll come close so you can see it. I'm just going to smush my face in a raisin and make as much wrinkles as I can, which is a lot. So I'm going to smush it up. And then I'm going to go lion face. I'm going to go big and stretch. But I don't want to bring tension back here. I'm just opening. And then I'm going to go raisin face again. Smush, smush, smush. And then lion. One more time, raisin face. Smush, smush, smush. And then lion. Then I'm going to relax again. I'm going to take the heels of my palm. I'm going to massage that jaw one more time. And my favorite one is you're going to take your hands. You're going to stand up nice and straight here. Open your jaw so it opens and drops down. Relax. Take your hands here and you're going to shake your hand, like from your elbow to your hands. You're going to shake it back and forth and your jaw is going to slide back and forth. So it's going to sound like this, like that, but your jaw's moving. So I'll come close so you can see it. Ready? So it's going to be like, and you can do that and really let some of that jaw relax and that tension go. So this is how we're going to start our physical warm-ups as performers. Ask me any questions you might have about any of those, and you should feel free to modify them in any way that you see fit, as long as it feels good for your body and is sort of waking up your body for presentation and performance. It's absolutely fine. That's just what we happen to use before we move into our more formal rehearsal process. So we go with our head and neck, shoulders, roll downs, and then faces and jaw. And we do all of that so it can prepare us for our vocal warm-ups. Most people don't do vocal warm-ups. Most of y'all just wake up in the morning and start speaking. And that's okay. For the most part, that's okay. But if you have to give a long speech, you have to speak to a large audience, you're unmicrophoned or you are microphoned, but in an outdoor environment, we want to have a vocal warm-up. Our voices are fragile things and we want to protect them. This is important for actors, especially, right? This is our instrument. It's what we use to do our profession. And so it's problematic if we can't use it. So after we've done the jaw shake, this one, we go ahead and just move into lip drills. So we're just going to go. And sometimes I like to change pitch while I'm doing it. And one more. And now my lips feel very tingly. We like to do a little bit of resonance work. And when I do the resonance work, we're going to go, ah. It's a little bit like singing. We're going to take a nice breath beforehand. And what I like to do is close my eyes and visualize the idea that the sound I am creating is light. I am creating sound and light simultaneously. And that the light is really warm and welcoming and a little glowy and sparkly and fairy dusty. And I like to imagine that while I'm singing, I am filling the room around me with this light. We have incredibly active imaginations when we're children, and then we sort of forget to use them when we're adults. So I'm going to invite you to join me in your childhood imagination and grow your room with light. So you're going to go ahead and stand here at neutral. Take a nice inhale here. And just go, and only do it as long as is comfortable for your breath. Go ahead and do it one more time. Inhale on your own time. Fill that room with light. You can do that as many times as you would like that feels good for you while you're getting your voice ready to speak. You can try different pitches if you would like. Then from there, after I've kind of woken up my face, woken up my lips, woken up my breath as it relates to making sound, I might do a couple of tongue twisters. And I can send out a bunch of tongue twisters. You can find them online by just Googling tongue twisters. And I'm going to recommend that you pick tongue twisters that are relevant to some of the content that you're delivering in your presentation. If you have to say words that start with a P over and over and over again, then pick some tongue twisters that are Peter Piper picked a peck, right? So you're going to pick the tongue twisters that are going to prepare your mouth for the content that you're delivering. And then the last thing that I do with vocal is warm-ups with my actors after we've done our physical and our vocal warm-ups, sort of like how we imagined what the final moment is going to be. I ask them to visualize and then practice their presentation start. So you can come back and sit down if you would like. When I talk about visualizing and practicing their presentation start, I make them practice everything. How they walk up to the space, how they introduce themselves, and then the first sentence of whatever the presentation is that they're giving. So they'll practice that 4 or 5 times. Now in acting, we call that slating, right? It's coming in, hi, my name is Titian Lish, I'll be presenting this, or hi, my name is Titian Lish, this is my agent, or whatever. You're not gonna say that, but you might say, hi, my name is Titian Lish, I'm here to talk to you about this, right? But you should practice that. You should practice walking into the space, visualizing yourself successfully entering the space, introducing yourself, practice the introduction, practice an inhale, and then start your speech. People don't practice that. They think for sure they're going to get that right. And then what happens is we're humans and we make mistakes and you like fumble your own name, or they forget to introduce themselves, or they can't find the microphone, or they don't know where to walk to or something. And then it's like your presentation or the thing you're trying to do starts off on the wrong foot already. And we want to be really thoughtful that we're planning the entire thing from the moment we walk in, all the way through the content, all the way through the exit. Actors don't just miraculously appear on stage. They have to get there, right? And so in rehearsal, we practice all of it, walking in from the wings, all the way to getting off stage afterwards. And that is helpful and really critical in making them feel a sense of accomplishment. I always tell actors, if you get on stage and you mess up your lines, everything from high to the end of the scene, but you got on successfully, congratulations. You walked on stage, you got your blocking right, you did a little bit of something correct, and that is still something to be really proud of. And usually sort of practicing a movement can help some of your energy dissipate, and so your nervousness can settle down a little bit. And you're like, oh, look at me, I walked to my spot. Oh, I introduced myself. Oh, I started my speech well. And then you're already in a place of positivity because you've practiced these really simple and kind of connected to you things. So this is how I prepare actors for their bodies and their voices. So we've talked about preparing our text, whatever the content is for our presentation. We've talked about our bodies and our voices. And then the last thing we want to just do is think about how we're going to roll with the punches. And I know we're close to the end of our time, and luckily this little bit is not going to take that long. Stanislavski, who we spoke of before, came up with this concept of the magic if, right? And this was new to realism in the late 19th century, right? In the early 20th century. This idea that actors should imagine themselves as the character, or imagine the character's lives as their own, or vice versa, right? Placing ourselves in the shoes of another person. People didn't do that in acting before. It was revolutionary. So we use this idea of the magic if in Stanislavski, and then we're going to talk about a concept called yes and. Now, the magic if we know comes from Konstantin Stanislavski, and it's this idea of if I were the character, I would do this. But I think you can apply this to anything you do. If I were the listeners, I would want this information. If I were the mayor, I would want to say this, right? So imagine yourself in this space, in the role you're trying to create yourself. Don't they say dress for the job you want, not the job you have? It's kind of the same thing for presenting, right? So present to the success by imagining yourself as the expert, as the successful space, or as the audience. Uta Hagen, the other acting practitioner that I take my training from, she took some of Stanislavski's stuff, and she also said, well, we can also apply substitution and transference. So I can say, well, if this were my own life, this is what I would do. So I might say, okay, well, if I were the mayor, this is how I would present it, but I'm not the mayor, but I am really good at yelling at, not yelling, but I am really good at giving information to my dogs, right? Sorry, Professor or Mr. Mashran, this is a really bad simplification of your mayoral history. But I can say, okay, I want to imagine
John,
myself.
please.
What's that?
John, please.
Okay. So if I'm the mayor, this is what I imagine my experience is going to be like. I am not a mayor, but I do have my dogs, and they do listen to me when I speak. So I'm going to deliver my presentation to my dogs in preparation for my presentation that I'm going to give to the board. And then when I go up into the board, I have this experience that I've delivered that feels personal to me, that is sort of in the back of my brain while I'm delivering it. And it can make the experience feel more connected to us as a person, more relatable to us as a person. And then you want to engage with your audience. Now, in Shakespeare's day, he talked to them directly. That's often seen in asides, and you guys can do the same thing. You can use the name of your participants when they're listening. You can apparently minimize the importance of their jobs when giving an anecdote. You can check for understanding by saying things like, ask me a question you might have, or what information do you still need from me, or what stories can you share with me in this experience? So imagining yourself in the role you want, practicing something in your life that can connect to that imaginative experience, and then engaging with your audience while delivering it can really help you feel centered. And then the last and most important thing we want to talk about is how we roll with the punches. John was right. Things go wrong. There has never been a performance that went flawlessly, not ever, not anywhere. I guarantee it. Like, I don't even need to know statistics on this. I'm just sure it's true, right? So we want to roll with these punches. When mistakes happen, we know that it's okay. So I recommend you train under pressure. You can do this in a lot of ways. You can do something physical and absolutely unrelated to the presentation you're doing. In our acting classes, sometimes I send actors outside once they've memorized their text, and I give them baseballs and gloves, and I make them throw baseballs back and forth while they're doing their lines, right? Students in our stage combat class might do a section of fencing while they're doing their lines. It's the idea that we're doing something seemingly unrelated to the task, so our brain has to focus on two things at once. That way, if you drop the ball, literally, right, you're practicing, you're throwing a ball back and forth and you drop the ball, you can still keep speaking your presentation while you're doing it because you're training your body and your brain that things are gonna go wrong, things are gonna be unexpected. But I am a human who can roll with this punch, and I can keep the momentum of the presentation I'm giving going because I've trained under pressure. Mistakes are gonna happen. Assume that they will happen. And so in acting, we use two philosophies. In improv, we use the idea of yes and. So if I'm giving a speech to somebody and they speak up and say, oh, I think this thing is related to what you're saying. And I might think to myself, well, not really, but I don't want to call that person out. I might say like, yes, thank you for that. And also, and then I recorrect and I kind of negotiate the content that I want the audience to hear. So I'm not diminishing what they say, but I'm also not amplifying it because I want to correct the information given. The way you can do this with no but is if somebody asks you a question that maybe you can't answer, or maybe you know you're going to have to give them the answer they don't want. Like if I said to John, John, can I be mayor?
Sure.
And his answer was
Take
like,
over.
what a terrible idea. He might be able to say like, no, but you could come and shadow me for the day, and I would love to share with you what my job is like. And already what I'm hearing is all of the positive fun things that I get to do, and not the fact that he said no. So in acting, we use yes and to sort of move it forward without shutting something down. But in teaching, we might use something like no, but we can do this alternative instead. Again, like parenting. And then again, I'm going to go back to this again, you guys. Visualize and rehearse the presentation start. Set up your technology, enter the room, introduce yourself, say your first sentence, assume things are going to go wrong, but that it's going to be okay. Practice all of that, and I promise you it's going to be a really, really great experience for you. So what are some questions you might have for me? Or alternatively, is there something that you would like to share with everyone that you got out of the presentation, or an aha moment where you're like, oh, I'd never thought of it that way, or anything? Thank you, Dawn, for joining us. Have a great day.
Okay, two things.
Yeah, John, thanks.
So my favorite line of Stanislavski was, there are no small parts, only small actors.
Yes.
And you remember Edmund Gwynn? He was
Yes.
the man who played Santa Claus in Miracle on 34th Street.
Yes, so good.
So as he lay dying, he was fading in and out of consciousness. You know this one?
Yeah. Oh, but I love where it's going.
Oh,
no,
okay.
but tell me more.
Oh, so as he was fading in and out of consciousness,
Yeah.
this is dying sure is hard. And he sort of faded out. He says, but it's not as hard as comedy.
It's totally true, though. Comedy is so hard. That's really funny. It's true, though. There are no small parts, right? There really aren't. We know this about our own lives, right? Everything is so intimately connected, and every small task we execute is ultimately important to a larger task that it's connected to. And I think the same thing is true as for performing, and true for presentations, and true for relationships and work, and all of that. Everyone's sort of a cog in the wheel, and I think it's really important to know that. And it's no different for actors and dying Santa Clauses, apparently.
We did Forum a number of years ago, and we had a 75-year-old ex-vaudevillian as Pseudolus, and he was on stage for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, so funny, but it slays every time.
But he got a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Every single time, just
Awesome.
walking across the stage.
Second time around.
Second time around. Such a great example.
Great fun, great fun. Well, thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you.
a great trip down memory lane and
So fun.
and a good excellent points, all of them. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you
welcome.
thank you.